Hello, everybody. Welcome to our next audience with. This is an audience with education based online. I'll introduce you to them shortly. But before I do that, the focus obviously has been on our partnership with education based online, particularly to do with our music production qualifications. So you can see, as I'm sure you're aware by now, that RSL Awards actually has five distinct brands: Rockschool, VQs, PAA, RSL Classical and CQs. Rockschool and RSL Classical are our traditional graded music exams, of which music production is one. Where, of course, it differs from the suite you can see in front of us is that while guitar, bass, drums, acoustic guitar, ukulele, vocals, piano, keys, classical piano, classical violin, and classical guitar coming out next week, actually, all focus on a model of performance to an examiner, and they're assessed in that way. Music production focuses much more on a coursework model. So as an overview, you can see there that it's 60% creative composition task, 25% theoretical written exam. This is about production terminology, sound audio fundamentals, about what it means to be a producer really, and the kind of the history and the tech that you're using as part of that process. And then the listening test is the sort of things you'd expect any decent musician and music producer to have a decent pair of ears, and they understand the music they're listening to, and it has a very specific sort of music production focus, which obviously goes through the grades from 1 to 8. Grade 6 to 8 carry UCAS points. As you can see there, grade 6 is 6 points, and grade 8 distincts you get up to 30 points. I've also put in the UCAS points for popular music theory, because that's quite a nice addition to what you're doing as well if you're looking at delivering music production. But the reason we're here today is because I would like to introduce Andrew Ferguson of Education Based Online, who will talk about sort of something I think relatively innovative, which has been exclusively about delivering our sort of music production stuff in an online setting. So, Andrew, hi. Can you just sort of give us an overview of who Education Based Online are? What do you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dan. So Education Base are a group of active industry specialists who can teach. We take a lot of pride in that, across a whole range of electronic music genres and different job roles in the industry. We are online and in-person music technology education, accredited and non-accredited, international tours, artist development, opportunities and success. And we've been online now for 5 years, but we've very much taken the in-person, face-to-face model around the world.
So what do you, as an organisation, just drill into that a little bit, what do you offer, and why is it valuable for the creative industry space that we're in right now?
So I was a FE and HE lecturer for 7 years, and just to kind of put my story in a nutshell, because it's quite extensive, I wasn't a very good student. I was entered for all my GCSEs, but didn't get any. Felt stupid, was made to feel like I was stupid at school, but it turns out I suffer from chronic anxiety. So over the years, when I slowly realized, hang on, I'm not stupid, I just learn a bit differently. After 15 years in the industry, went back to education to do a master's degree in advanced music technology, which nearly killed me. Then went on to do a PGCE, ended up lecturing for 7 years. And that gave me a kind of insight into and inspiration to want to help others from a similar place that I've come from. And hence, later on we get into the chat, we talk about some of the other things we're doing. But ultimately, I just wanted to give a good, high quality music technology education for anybody that wishes to access it without any restrictions, and, you know, based on industry specialists that have dedicated their lives to this thing, that can teach. And, you know, we've gone on to now offer accreditation in line with kind of the music production grades, the diplomas that you offer, and we're working towards some other higher education programs as well. But in a nutshell, it's just to try and give people the opportunity to, one, gain a qualification for people that might not have felt it was something they could achieve, whether they just weren't very good students or suffered from mental health or whatever, similar to myself, because, you know, entry-level requirements into FE and A levels can be tough. And if you're not ready at school, does that mean you shouldn't have an opportunity? So in essence, we're providing that place where we're working towards music technology education for all. That's kind of the what we're trying to get the strapline down to.
Nice. That seems pretty decent as it stands. What would you say your relationship is um, in terms of progression onto college courses or onto higher education? Do you see yourself as that, or do you see yourself as an alternative to those routes, or is it a bit of both?
It's both, really. So we offer from entry level, ultimate beginners, all the way into industry, from our different kind of things that we offer, accredited and non-accredited. So obviously the production grades, they offer up to a level 3 equivalent with UCAS points. Now, that has helped facilitate some people consider and applying for university as a mature learner. Obviously, we're not able to capture the kind of FE A-level sort of young people at this point, although we are making traction with working in alternative provision and closely with schools. But primarily up until now, the public facing side of it is generally kind of 19 and upwards. So giving those types of people the opportunity to maybe have some UCAS points to get them used to a style of learning, application, dedication, and then go off and to potentially consider higher education at university. So, you know, it absolutely has facilitated that.
Mm. So in many ways, you don't really work in isolation. It's a case of working with lots of other sort of people. I mean, other than us, I mean, who do you work with, or the particular people you work with that have brought particular value to kind of what you've offered?
Obviously, the core of the education and base tutors that, as I say, are kind of the industry specialists that have dedicated their lives to it, and you know we take pride in the fact that they can teach. Many of them have taught in schools, colleges, and universities, and still very much active in the industry. That's really important to us. But obviously, our partnerships with, you know, the likes of RSL, music services, music hubs, local authorities, software and hardware manufacturers have all kind of contributed towards what we can offer people. But I would say kind of where we're going with education and base, more into the alternative provision side of things, and you know, special education needs and disabilities, certainly the local authorities and the councils and the music hubs and music services, those kind of partnerships are really supportive, and we're coming together to do some amazing things actually.
And I think certainly one of the things that you've talked about with us in the past has been things like your Heritage Sounds project. You sort of that to me sort of epitomises quite a lot of what you do. Can you just sort of give an outline of what that is?
Yeah, so Heritage Sounds is essentially educating, re-educating on the music of Black origin. You know, a lot of what we, certainly where I come from, sound system culture, if you think of any form of electronic music, it stems from, you know, reggae sound system culture in Jamaica, going over to inspire hip hop in the States, then on to kind of disco and house, which came over and blew up the summer of '89 here in the UK. Acid house was born. From that, you had all of these kind of genres and subgenres. But not only that, you know, the music of Black origin, funk, soul, jazz, reggae, dub, it pretty much has had a positive effect and helped develop a lot of music as we know it, from pop music, which that's a general term in itself, you know, what is pop music?
Yeah.
And it's just kind of just letting people know, reminding people where a lot of this come from, because I think it's really important to educate on that and celebrate that. And as an early age as possible, really, I think it's an essential thing. So yeah, it's educating and re-educating on the music of Black origin, which is responsible for so many great things about to do with all of the music that we all love.
And it is something, and actually pop music history as a whole isn't something that has been focused on as much as, say, you know, the Western classical tradition in schools. And yet, as you said, it contributes such a significant amount to what music students are engaging with now and what they're going to engage with in the future, and of course the creative industries as a whole, which is a massive contributor to to actually the UK's GDP and further abroad. So that's really interesting. And on a slightly more Rockschool focused note, then obviously our music production course is something that you've embedded. How does that fit into the organisation? How does it run in your model, and what does it bring to the party?
It started off as an all online program, and we kind of we've had to kind of develop it or redevelop it in a way that works for us, education based. So rather than a model that absolutely works, is you might take a learner on, work them through a grade at a time, you know, teach them to that grade, and they'll enter their exam, move on to the next, as you would traditional instrumentation such as violin or piano. What we've done is our initial port of call with the production grades were, we've got a 1 year program that teaches the learners everything from grades 1 to 6 throughout, and it's all online. It does a lot of it's pre-recorded, but there is some live delivery, there's some live feedback sessions, we have homework, and you know, we keep it really kind of in check with regards to us, making sure we know where the learners are at any given time. We've got our own VLE, we do weekly quizzes and checks of learning, and we get reports on all of that stuff. We know how long the students have been online, and you know, we're really vigilant with that side of things. And then what we do, because we have that evidence that's not just the quizzes and the checks of learning, we have practical homework and practical projects where maybe every 6 to 8 weeks they might submit a practical piece of work, and then during a live feedback session with the rest of the learners, we give that kind of constructive feedback, and that's obviously documented and recorded. So throughout that whole journey, we know at any given time where that learner is at. So we sit down with the learner towards the end of the journey with all of their evidence and everything they've submitted, and have an honest conversation, and we put them in for the grade that they're at that time, but they will have learned everything from 1 to 6. And it's, you know, they dedicate 2 to 4 hours a week for the actual learning, and anything beyond that is the practice and stuff, and that's online. And yeah, it's been really great to just give people opportunities that, like myself, didn't come from traditional education or didn't do well. We've had people on there that are absolute beginners, take the exact same pathway, and those that have been making music for 10 years, self-taught, that have come through, gone on to smash a distinction, feel amazing, and you know, it's been a great thing for them as well as a mature learner. So we've seen a great range of different learners from all walks of life, and that's been an amazing thing. We are currently developing a top up to that, because obviously we've still got to consider grades 7 and 8, so it'll be a more condensed kind of top up for those who want to take it to that next level. But it's worked out pretty well. There's been a few teething problems that we're kind of analysing and tweaking, but for the first of its kind, and kind of remixing, I guess, the RSL model in that sense, just to make it this more holistic A to Z journey, it's worked out really well. In addition to that, we're now using it in our alternative provision. So education and base is now moving more and more into alternative provision, both online and in person. We're working closely with Leicestershire Music. We have AP every Friday for the next academic year and beyond. That's actually started, it's in person, and we're using that structure. Although we're kind of remixing a little bit, we are now starting to package it up per grade, just in case that it needs to facilitate differentiation, or the role of a facilitator can come in and kind of guide the learner through on a grade to grade basis, rather than this big long kind of 1 year program. And obviously with alternative provision as well, you might have learners coming in and out of the provision that aren't there necessarily for a whole year. And a beautiful thing about the production grades is they are split up into grades. So it means that instead of that learner having to wait a whole year to get something out of it, if they want to take it periodically and go for each grade and get that feel-good factor and that motivation, they're still achieving. And if they do end up going back into mainstream education, they've still gained something from the time that they're with us. In addition to that, we're now working with the PRU in Bedfordshire, where we're going to be working with some young people once a week, again, taking them through a grade at a time in a people referrals unit, which commonly you might have a learner just for 6 weeks. And we're confident that we can take a learner through a grade 1 in 6 weeks with live delivery, in addition to our online education as an enrichment thing. So it's, as it started of being this public facing 1 year program, it's now facilitating a lot of what we do and supporting the foundation of alternative provision and some of the work we're doing in special schools as well. So it's really kind of blossoming into kind of having a use for a multitude of different areas and benefits.
That's quite interesting, because one of the challenges, of course, is when you're working with students in music, is you're working with students that have got multiple different access points and different experiences, and then having the ability to sort of say, right, well, you're working at this level, as opposed to this level or this level, and then sort of helping them through the progress. So that's really interesting that you've devised a way of doing it so you can have an absolute beginner working with someone at quite an advanced level, but they're still going through a taught program with
Yeah,
yourselves. That's quite interesting.
differentiation's tough at the best of times, and we've probably set ourselves up here for immense differentiation, but you know, it's working. And yeah, it's just the luxury of having that. The whole thing exists online, so it also, you know, we've had interest from schools where music teachers, maybe from a CPD perspective, or just they want that extra support and use the resource to facilitate what they do in the classroom, or to just for them to just become the facilitator and not necessarily have to be a subject specialist, because I've dedicated 25 years of my life to music technology and I'm still learning every day. So, you know, it's now becoming something that teachers and youth workers are now also able to use as a tool to facilitate a young person through a qualification, which is an amazing thing.
And obviously, you know, you specialise in online teaching. Online learning has been a thing for a while. It was particularly significant over these last 2 years. It's at the heart of what you do, but obviously you've got the face-to-face side of things as well. What are the advantages to online delivery, and are there particular learners that you think it suits more than others, or is it genuinely for everybody?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the accessibility can't be denied. We work with people all over the world. You know, on the EBRSL graded syllabus, we've had people in, you name it, every country from China, Japan, like all over Europe, Morocco, everywhere. That wouldn't be possible with, you know, if it was just kind of face to face. So the accessibility side of it is amazing. And some of the alternative provision stuff, you know, working with cared for young people and those that may suffer from mental health that can't leave their house. You know, it's like, what does that mean? They can't have an education? So, you know, there's lots of benefits to the online side of it. The convenience, you know, no travel time and stuff like that. I don't think you can necessarily beat, if that's the correct word, if you're going to compare. I do love face-to-face, and I think, you know, the value and the quality of face-to-face, you know, is a hard thing to compete with. But I do think certainly post-COVID, everybody is now a bit more open to the fact that, you know, that it can be done. I mean, I'm in talks with some prisons about dialing in to deliver lessons. That wasn't even a possibility before COVID. Now they're like, yeah, no, we've got a system now. It could quite be possible. So, you know, potentially supporting young offenders institutes and stuff like that, which, you know, from a remote standpoint is an amazing thing to have that as a support mechanism, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the opportunities that it presents, and I think the accessibility for the students is significant. So, what advice would you give to anybody looking to set up, you know, without giving away too many trade secrets? What would you know, they're looking to set up an online delivery model such as yours. What would you say? What would you say? Be careful, avoid this, or this was really well.
I think look at, you know, a lot of teachers faced this during the pandemic. It was kind of assumed that you could transfer what you did in the classroom directly onto a video lesson. That's not the case. You know, students turning off their cameras, just doing what they've got to do. You've just got to make sure you keep it engaging, short, sharp tasks. You can absolutely do tasks in online lessons, you know, no different to kind of as you might treat it. You know, so here's probably what happened. Not the fact that you could directly translate a classroom lesson online. That wasn't necessarily assumed. It was probably the opposite, that it was assumed that you couldn't. So it became this chalk and talk thing where it's like, I'm the teacher, I'm going to teach you. When, as we know, you know, that's not grade 1 Ofsted teaching. You have to be the facilitator, you have to keep it moving, you have to have tasks, and you have to have questions, conversations. So as long as you can kind of apply that style of teaching and keep the learners engaged and ensure that they're doing what they need to be doing and no cameras off, and you can manage that. And it's not an easy transition, but I think if you can do that, it's no real different to what you might do in person, but it does take a bit of practice and adapting and stuff like that. But I would just say, yeah, really master having a really engaging, measurable online session, because that's where it is really.
That's interesting. And this idea that what you do in the classroom face to face, you can actually do that online because the tech is there, particularly presumably with music production, where you're able to share stuff that's already built onto a machine. Very interesting. Yeah. Okay. So, you know, as we're drawing to a close this afternoon, what's next for education based online?
So, you know, we're working more towards that one strapline of music technology education for all. It's really close to my heart that we give people the opportunity not just to come in and learn as beginners, but potentially go on to do a master's or a PhD. You know, like myself, that's really, really important. And you know, we've got our heart set on, I guess even that in itself with what we do is an alternative provision. It's not mainstream. You're not going through the normal channels. So alternative provision holistically is the thing, whether it be working with local authorities to support online and in-person alternative provision, whether it be going into special schools or SEND sectors to support music technology education. It's really providing music technology education for anybody that wants to do it with no restrictions, really.
Thank you, Andrew. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much for sharing your insight and everything you're doing. Obviously, it's really exciting, onwards and upwards. Stuff happens all the time. I know you're very busy, as everybody is at this time of the year. But yeah, we will speak again very, very soon. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.